Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the first review in 2025. And today we have here the ENGWE Y600 model. This is an electric scooter which comes as a surprise because several things. You know that ENGWE doesn't do a lot of scooters, they do a lot of e-bikes, various models. But when they do scooters, they choose somehow that they want to attack all things on market. So they want performance, they have range, and they keep a very low price for their electric scooters, which becomes a puzzle. Are they good, great, or bad? And today we are going to test this one because it promises to have a very nice set of features and very good performance, but the price on this scooter is absolutely fabulous and it's very low, so you should check that out. I'm going to leave a link somewhere below. And we are going to jump into the technical details right now. We are going to start with the battery. So please keep in mind that I've told you probably at least one time that this scooter is cheap. Well, not the components on it, because we are talking about a battery that has not 36 volt like on any other small compact cheap scooter, but it actually has 48 volt battery. And the capacity of that is 18.2 amp hours, which is again huge. Just keep that in mind and compare it with scooters in the same price category. This is a huge battery in both size and voltage, so this is going to give you a lot of real range. Then all that power goes into the motor. Rear motor is a direct drive hub motor, which has very good speed potential and has a power rated officially of over 800 watts peak power. And because we are talking about the motor together with the trigger display here, which is the accelerator, has two working modes. It has the normal regular European mode, which is the legal one, and the scooter is locked to 25 kilometers per hour, and that's it. But if you are feeling lucky and you are running this somewhere where you don't have cops and you don't have the law, or it's a private road and not a public road and so on, you know that warning, you know what I want to say. You can actually unlock this. I'm going to show you how to do it in another video. You can unlock it, and when you unlock it, this scooter transforms totally and radically, and it will do 45 kilometers per hour right away, and it does that really nice, as you will see. To feel good on the scooter with all that speed, you have full suspension, front suspension, rear suspension. It's not adjustable, but it works pretty good because I have tested this already for a bit of riding before, and I can tell you that it does a good job. And I also like the tires very much because they have this wide part here. They are 4 inch wide. So being that wide creates a very large contact surface, and you can actually take some really nice turns with this scooter because you have extra tire on the sides. It feels really nice actually to ride it. The scooter is also very convenient, and it has a lot of reasons for that. For instance, I'm going to start with the handlebar. So when you are not using the scooter, it's not folding like a regular scooter. You have this nice metal parts here that you untwist and then pull, and you are going to fold the handlebar. So the handlebar is going to take a lot less space than a normal folded scooter where you don't fold the handlebar, but you just fold the handlebar stem. So even with one hand, I have folded this. Then you have the folding stem, which of course goes on the deck. So this becomes very compact, and it doesn't have the handlebar sticking on the sides, so you hit your legs when the scooter is parked somewhere. Then it also has this nice handle here to carry, and now we are reaching a very interesting complication. I'm going to add some other videos here. This part here, this metal plate, it's exchangeable. You have another one which is for the seat. This scooter also comes with a seat, so you can use that to stay on the deck. Really nice, comfortable. I don't usually like that on the scooters. And on some countries, it's stupid that an electric scooter with a seat, it's classified as a moped. If it doesn't have a seat, it's not a moped, it's a scooter. So if it's a moped and it's not registered, you can have issues in some countries. But if it doesn't have the seat, it's not a moped, so you don't have issues. Oh, you get it, it's stupid. Anyway, so if you can put the seat and you can ride on the seat, then it's very comfortable and very nice, but you have to replace this plate. And this plate here also acts as a reinforcement part for the rear suspension. And you can see here in this attached video that the screws that go through the suspension parts also goes to the bracket here, and it has two metal parts. So it has the original scooter frame and then goes through this adapter plate, and it has a lock nut underneath. So the shaft here goes through the suspension part, then goes through this frame, and then goes to the bracket, while the bracket is also held to the deck with other screws. Then this support, this handle, is fixed to that. If you are going to replace that with the seat, you are going to take this off, but you also need to take out the suspension screws. But you don't have to take them out completely because that's going to get too complicated. So you can untwist them until they go out of the bracket but not out of the frame. So they still stay in the frame, and that will keep the scooter in one piece, because otherwise if you take the screws completely out, all the washers and all the things here are going to fall out, and the scooter will fall on its back because it's not going to support its weight through the suspension shocks. So it gets complicated to replace that plate, but it's good to have the option to take it out completely and replace it with this bracket, which makes the suspension stronger and gives you this support if you don't need the seat. Otherwise, you can put the seat, and the plate has the same function, that it reinforces the rear part of the frame and of the suspension. The folding mechanism from the front stem is also not complicated, but very sturdy, and takes a bit of force and use to getting it to work, because you have here a special nylon bush that squeezes, so this reduces the vibration of this whole assembly, so it doesn't rattle when it's unfolded. It's a very nice feature to have, because some scooters don't have this. And this type of mechanism always has a bit of play in it, and it's absolutely normal. And that's why you have this compression bush here that gets squeezed, so it takes out the rattle. But being flexible, it still gives you a bit of movement, but it's not a problem. It takes the shock, so it reduces the strain on the whole system here. So this will have a much longer longevity than other scooters which have a fixed metal to metal folding system. So this is not going to break, because all of that rattle and vibration while you ride the scooter are absorbed by this flexible part here, and not going into the metal work, putting fatigue on the welds or on the folding system parts. And to make things a bit more complicated and yet safe, this cannot be pressed as hard as you press it. It's not going to go down unless you actually push the stem forward, unlike folding it back. So you need to press, unlock this first, put it in the unlock position, and try to press this, but don't press it because it's going to lock it and it's not going to work it. And be prepared to press this while you push this. Sounds complicated, right? I'm going to show you that it's actually simple to do it. And as quick as that, now it's folded, and it's also locked into the folded position. As you can see now, this is locked again, so it's not pressing, and it's holding this, so you can use it as a carrying handle. You can take the scooter now with you, and it's not going to unfold. And it makes it great because you can put a hand somewhere here or here to carry it, and you also have the handle here, so you can take this with you. One thing I do not like on this particular type of implementation is that they didn't put a bumper here, so the chassis of the scooter, the frame, is directly on the ground. But that's very simple. You can get a piece of adhesive with silicone pad and something and just glue in front of the scooter. The unfolding is similar. So first the pin, lock it so this is flexible like this, and press it with your hand. Then you are going to lift it up, and you need to do a bit of jolt, so it's not going to stay because you are pressing that flexible bush there. So you need to give it a jolt or keep your foot here on the rear part, and then just push it in front until it clicks. And now it has locked, and now the locking pin. Moving on further, the scooter is accessorized with a real voltage meter that shows you exactly the volts in your battery. This is visible in daytime. On the camera it's going to flash weirdly, so you are not going to see much out of it. It also has this key lock which turns off power completely to the scooter, so you cannot power it without the key. Nice safety feature. And then you need to power the display, and only now you can ride the scooter. This has a trigger accelerator. Then on this left part here you have the lights switch and the turn signal, and the turn signal also has an audible alarm, just like a car, that you know you are still signaling, so you don't forget them on, and of course a horn. Then going to the lights, you have a lot of lights on this scooter, so you have a nice front LED headlamp with 4 LEDs. That's pretty bright. Then you have deck lights, you have side lights and turn lights. In daytime they are not very visible, but in low light they are very visible. You have also working brake lights. You have red rear lamp and also brake lamp. Also the sides are braking and showing that. Here you can see it better in low light, so it's pretty good and makes you very visible. In daytime the rear lamp is very visible and the front headlamp also is very visible. The scooter has a dual braking system, so it has normal brakes both front and rear with disc, 140 millimeter disc, which is large enough for the size of the scooter. They are normal cable operated brakes, but that's not all. I told you they are dual because you have mechanical brakes with disc, then you have inhibitor sensors in the brake levers, and those are going to tell the controller of the scooter that you are braking, and first is going to brake electrically. So regenerative braking is the first braking of the scooter, so it's going to get some electric current back in your battery, and if you press the brake lever harder, then the brake pads are going to touch the disc and do their job. So you can adjust the scooter brakes even though they are mechanic, and they are good because they are mechanic. You can loosen them up a bit so they don't work right away here. So the scooter knows that you are pushing this, and it gets the signal and turns off the motor, starts to regenerate the battery, brakes with the motor, saves power and doesn't wear out the disc. Then if you are in emergency and you really need to stop, you press it harder and then the pads will touch the disc and stop you. So as you can see, with all of those systems, this is no longer a cheap scooter. As I was telling you, it has everything that you can find on high-end scooters, but this is cheap. And it's some say that it's not good to tell too much about a product that is cheap, because cheap means bad quality or something is not right with it. It's not happening here. So it's very strange how ENGWE manages to make scooters this advanced, yet still retain a good price on them. Right, so now let's ride the scooter. As to know the dynamics of how it works, I weigh about 95 kilograms. My backpack today also has a bit of around 2 kilograms, not very heavy. So keep that in mind when you assess the performance of the scooter, when I tell you how fast or how slow it accelerates and so on. The scooter is unlocked, so it has the full speed. I turn this on, the battery is almost full, 53.5 volts. I did ride it a bit before. Turn it on, it's on gear 1. It has 3 gears. Gears mean the speed limit for the working mode that is on. selected. Right, so first of all, when you hop on this, it feels strange and nice. The handlebar on this scooter has a kind of self-centering mechanism. Maybe you can see it on the camera. So it has a spot in the middle where it's straight, and then it needs just a tiny amount of resistance to push it on the side. And that's strange, because it's the first time when I feel something like that on a scooter, and I'm wondering how it's going to feel while I ride it. So let's go. The acceleration, even in first gear, is pretty powerful, but it's going to top out at 15-16 kilometers per hour. So switching to gear 2, the acceleration is keeping a good power, and this goes to 30 kilometers per hour, which means only one thing. If I'm going to gear 3, let's return here because there are not people. So the acceleration is performing really nice, and I'm already doing 25. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, 30, and it's keep on going, 34, 35, and the braking works really nice. But as you can see, the acceleration is rather progressive, so it's not something very crazy. This is how the controller is programmed, so doing that, it prolongs the battery life. But if you have a long stretch of road and you keep the accelerator all the way in, it's going to do 40 and more than 40, 45 kilometers per hour, which is pretty good. And I'm doing 35 again. And 30 again, so it gets very fast to 30 something, and then it continues to get on speed. So I'm doing now 38, and I'm actually going uphill, and on this ramp here it has absolutely no issues to go up. And again, this is a slightly uphill section here, and I'm doing 30 with no problems. So it has a good amount of torque. And it can sustain pretty good speeds even when going up. If I'm going to turn back, so going to do that test again downhill, is going to do 40 right away, because gravity helps, of course. So I'm already doing 30, 35, 38, but I cannot do that much here because it's still a bit icy on the road in some sections. 39, 40, 42. So it gets to speed pretty fast, and you can launch yourself into action. And 36 again. And now the brakes. Told you the brakes work really nice, but look at my left hand, so I'm just touching it. The sensor has kicked in. I'm not using the brakes, but the scooter stopped almost instantly, only using regenerative power and not using real braking power. So watch this again. So I have 30 kilometers per hour right now, and I just touch the brake lever, and you can hear the motor. And it's interesting, it doesn't lock up instantly, it's progressive, so you feel the motor starting to drag, and then it starts to drag very hard. So let's do that again. I am accelerating and touching the brake, and it's like going in steps. it starts slower and then becomes more and more hard when it's braking. So really nice, because this way it prevents the rear wheel from locking up, because the motor is on the rear wheel. So you don't want to lock that up, because it can end up in a crash. And the sensor also works for the front brake. You don't have to use the brake really, but just touch it. And here's how it's working right this way. So I'm touching the brake. You can see it turns on the stop lamps also, but the brake pads are not touching the disc. So if I hold the brake lever pressed and the brake is on, the scooter can freely go. It's not doing anything. It's braking electrically, but to do that you need to have a bit of speed, so the motor puts resistance and stops you. Also, there is one more thing to keep in mind. This review is done in about 5 degrees centigrade outside, although I'm not wearing gloves, my hands are frozen. And this has a big impact on battery, because when a battery, a lithium-ion battery, is cold, it's not going to give a lot of power very fast. So you can see that here on this voltage display. Let me try to make it visible on the camera. So when I push the throttle, the voltage drops pretty good. This doesn't happen that much when the battery has something like over 20 degrees centigrade. So first thing that I have observed on the scooter was, when I started going with it, was the steering, that it has the self-centering system, and it actually works really nice, because usually I cannot do that on other scooters. Yes, a lot of people can do it on any kind of scooter. I don't. I ride a lot of bikes, and I always found that on electric kick scooter I don't have the same balance. But that self-centering is holding the handlebar in such a way that you can actually have something like it's keeping your handlebar straight, and you don't get that balance that you get on a bike, but you get a lot more better stability, which is actually really, really interesting. And if I press, I don't need to press, I actually can do something like fully releasing the handlebar. But no, I don't want to fall on the camera. The idea is that regardless of how fast or slow you are riding, this feels somehow that it's more stable than a normal scooter. It's strange to, it's actually strange to explain the feeling. It's like having a, you know, there are some advanced scooters that have a special device that reduces the wobble of the steering stem. It's not like having that. It's like having a hand that keeps your handlebar for not wobbling. It's strange, but it's nice, and it feels good actually, because when you are riding very fast, you actually need to keep the handlebar straight. It's not like on a bike where you move it all around, and you just keep it straight and the scooter balances with you. Strange again, but strange in a nice way and stable way, because it keeps the direction. Look at that, almost made it and almost fell. Interesting, this system is to see how the suspension works. So find the perfect spot here to do kind of off-road. And I can tell you that the suspension works really nice. Both front and rear are soaking up the bumps very, very good. And the scooter has very good traction with these tires. They are mixed, they are not directly off-road, but they are not only on-road. They have some good tracks on them. And being wide and a bit more ballooned, they also give you some cushioning and very good traction. But the suspension itself does a very, very good job. And there's another thing that I like on this suspension and on this scooter. There are no strange noises. There is no rattling. There is no squeaking noises, no funny sounds coming from parts that are taking the abuse. The scooter is just working nicely. And actually, that's how it should work. Another geeky detail about the scooter, which I really like, is the voltage meter. And this shows the exact battery voltage and the voltage drop and the voltage rise. Because now it shows that I have 51 volts, but as soon as I accelerate, it drops to 48.7 volts. And now it's 48.6 because I drain a lot of amps from the battery because the acceleration is at maximum. When I release it, I have 50.6, but when I electrically brake, now I have almost spiked at 52 volts because the motor was starting to generate power and charge up the battery. So when you are going downhill with this scooter, you are putting back energy into the battery, which is again nice to have such an efficient regenerative brake on this scooter. And if you really want to brake, and that was another brake test, if you really want to brake, you can actually brake until your wheels will lock up and rubber will remain on the asphalt there, because brakes have a lot of braking power. And I'm making this comment here because on a lot of my scooter reviews I get mixed feelings about having hydraulics and normal brakes, and a lot of people are telling, hey, they could put hydraulic brakes. Okay, they might put hydraulic brakes. What do you get when you have hydraulics? You get a lot more stopping power, but this scooter has enough stopping power until it locks the wheels. The brakes also have very good modulation, even though they are cheap mechanical one. They're actually from Zoom. The brakes are from Zoom, which is a decent brand. And you can actually control them how much you want to brake mechanically. But combined with the electrical brakes, you don't have the need for hydraulics. Also with hydraulics, in theory, you should have less maintenance because they do not need so much adjustments, but they also are more expensive when they break because you need to bleed them, you need a bleed kit, you need gaskets, O-rings. It gets complicated and messy. With the cable ones, everyone knows how to fix a cable brake, which are cheap and easy to adjust and quick to adjust, not complicated like the hydraulics. So this is also a thing that keeps the price of the scooter down, because having hydraulics, even no-name hydraulics, could have been rising the price of this scooter with at least $80 to $100 more. So I like this scooter this way, and the brakes are fine, just like they are. So now you have seen the scooter in action, and you can probably guess my opinions about it. I really like it actually, because it's really nice. It has good performance. The range on the scooter is very good. With all my running today, I have still full battery. I didn't do a lot of range because it's very cold, but nonetheless the scooter will do probably the advertised range on the site, which is something like 70 kilometers. Probably going to reach that, of course, in economic mode, not unlocked and 45 kilometers per hour full throttle mode. That's not possible on any kind of scooter. But nonetheless, riding it slower with legal limits or slower than that is going to give you a huge range, and even in cold weather you are going to get a good range on it. I really like the comfort on it. The suspension works really nice, unexpectedly well, although you can see here the marks, the dirt on here on the suspension, so you don't have a huge travel distance on the front shock, and same is on the rear shock. They don't have a lot of travel. They are just perfect because they soak up the bumps really nice and make the ride really pleasant, while they do not make funny noises. They are not doing strange rattles and other annoying sounds. The light system on it also is nice. You have side lights in the deck, you have turn signals, you have tail lamp, stop lamp, front LED lamp. They are very visible in lower light. In daytime you are not going to see how bright the sides are, but they are there and they are for lower light situation. I also like the performance of this scooter, although it does 40 plus kilometers per hour, actually 45 kilometers per hour. It's going to do that, but it needs a bit of space because it gets very fast to about 35 kilometers per hour, and from there the acceleration starts to decrease. But it's okay. It's not a super powerful scooter. It's a scooter that gives you something of everything. So it gets speed, it gets range, it goes uphill, it does all of that. But keep in mind again the price of this scooter, because at this price of the scooter you are not going to get a full suspension, high power, long range scooter in any kind of way. So compare it with the cheap ones. The cheap ones that only go 20 kilometers, don't have suspension, so they are priced in the same class, but this is high-end performance comparing to those models. What I also like is the build quality, and especially the rear suspension, how it's made up, because now we get nylon washers, we get metal washer, nylon washer, nylon washer, aluminum washer. Then we have here metal washer, nylon, nylon, nylon. So the suspension is no longer held solid by screws, and when you turn the screws too much, they are going to lock the suspension, or if you release the screws for the suspension to work, the screws will get untightened, because this has been studied and now works properly. Then on this part here, you have a single piece of frame which holds both the suspension and the suspension arm there, the suspension shaft. So all the force in the rear suspension holds in the same metal plate, not on different plates. So that makes it a very solid design. Then this part of the frame is reinforced by the other brackets. So you have this shaft of the suspension going through the frame and then going through the bracket. Same on this side. So it's double up the suspension part here on the top of the scooter. And this makes it a lot more solid than other scooters that use similar design, but they don't have the bracket, nor they don't have the same plate that holds the arm and the suspension arm. And doing that makes this very good. And like all my reviews, I always give you pros and cons, so I need to find some cons because there's always room for improvement. And I found the con for this is this locking mechanism, which is very smart, very solid, but this nut here on the pull shaft here, if you rotate it reversely, you are untightening it. I don't know if you can observe that, but it has a thread there. So when you are doing that, this gets longer than usual. So if you don't know what you are doing, even when this is locked, this is going to get longer and it's going to lock this even though it's unlocked. Also, if you continuing going that way, this is going to get lost. It's going to get out from here, and all of this is going to fall apart, this mechanism. So you really need to take caution with that. Always rotate it in normal way. Also, I'm going to try to hold this something like this and put some lock thread on it, because you are going to lose this part here. And another thing that I like, this is just for your personal taste, I like how they kept the color, so it's mostly black. You get this gray part here, but that's good for visibility, so it's not black. but other parts, all of the other components are red. So you get this red handle, red suspension, red brake cables, red calipers, red tail lamp of course, red folding system, again red cables, red folding system. So it has that red accent with black parts, really nice. Even this red folding clamps here for the, and not only folding, this is for the adjustment, it's also red. So they kept a line. They could have used every colors, make this silver chromed, make this aluminum white, and no, they didn't do that. They kept a nice red line on it, so it has a uniform design, color design, and I like that. So with that said, it's time to end this review. I hope that you have enjoyed it. If you have any kind of questions or comments, leave them below and I'm going to try to answer you as fast and as best as possible. Also check the deals for this scooter, because I'm telling you again, for this price, probably you cannot get something better with so many features, so good performance, and such a big battery. Until my next video, see you and bye bye.